No, it was not, it was my son.
Okay, record the cloud.
Alrighty, it's 5:12. Thank you for joining us for this meeting. We're starting a little late. To get started, can we go ahead and establish quorum? You want to go ahead and call roll?
Tim Hunter,
He's absent.
Craig Benelli,
Here.
Rachel McWhorter. Here. Craig McClure.
Here.
Kara Taylor.
Absent. All right, we have quorum, because we just need three. So we'll go ahead and get started. Do we want to do pledge of allegiance and everything, or just a special meeting? All right, let's join me in the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Alrighty.
All right,
Go ahead and,
I move that we approve the agenda as presented. You're gonna have to second.
Oh, second. Sorry, I Tim can't do it.
ready, go.
Craig Benelli,
Aye.
Rachel McWhorter,
Aye.
Craig McClure.
Aye.
All right, approval of agenda is passed. We're gonna, for tonight's meeting, it's a special meeting. And we are going to discuss policy review concerning student use of cell phones policy. This is going to be our third reading. And yeah, so we'll go ahead and kick this off.
Yeah, I'll just provide some context and updates. This has been under review since late or mid-spring, I would say, in the month of April, after reviewing data and input from our student and family services team, and also just keeping up with research and information about the impact of cell phones, that we determined it was time to bring back review our cell phone protocol policy, not unlike across the state, nation, and world around what's the best practices for cell phones. And first, just want to say it's this is a local and national conversation. And our goal as a school is to provide a learning environment for students, and also an environment for students to connect. And so with that in mind, we wanted to find out what our community had to say about it, and also what the greater community of experts around learning and social development. So I've reshared a draft of the operational aspects of if this policy passes, this is the operational aspects. So tonight we're here to discuss the policy, which we'll get to in a minute, but I do want to just update you on some of the recent information, conversations, and input, and updates on the operational side should this policy go through. We've heard a lot of feedback from students, families, and teachers. If you're interested, you could go through and look at that. Overwhelmingly, nobody really argues. Even students will talk about in the classroom itself, about the impact of phones in the classroom itself. So a lot of what the conversation is about is the impact of classrooms in the hallways, sometimes in the bathrooms, within the social environment, and the ongoing distraction that cell phones create, and also the enforcement of our current policy. So there's actually not a proposal to have that much dramatic change in some elements of the policy. What we're really looking at is creating a policy that supports our educators and our students with being able to uphold the policy through structures and practices, and a schedule that does that. So again, imagining every break when you have the ability to access your cell phone. I think we all are used to and are learning how to best navigate our cell phones as adults, and even knowing it's in your pocket. There's research about that distraction and all of that. So within that, the most recent guidelines have some guidelines that are added here based on the feedback.
Is that the July 17 doc?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes, based on that feedback, and I think I just want to highlight what people are asking for and what their concerns are and how we'll address those. But the main changes, when we look at just want to back up to the policy review, is more explicit about what it means for when phones are away. So it's just more explicit in the language about all day. And so, whether it's within instructional or day, so we're saying bell, AM bell to PM bell, including passing periods, lunch and all of that for elementary all the way through the end of 8th grade. That actually is not any different. It's the operationalization, it's the operations and the guidelines that will change in terms of how we store phones and how we ensure that students are able to have that distraction-free day without having them in their backpacks, and for teachers to have to navigate enforcement of those.
so while you're there, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Because the guidelines are strict about a lockup policy,
Mhm.
but the policy has be used or seen, which means it could be in a pocket.
So. Today, I'm sorry,
The
question.
policy doesn't seem to align with the guidelines for a procedure. Because the policy says phones can't be used or seen. It doesn't say they can't be on the person. And a lockup
Right.
system means they can't be on the person.
Right, and so we can talk about that if that's something that we wanna put in the policy. What's in the policy also says that the administration has the ability to operationalize the policy in
Okay.
ways that support the policy.
Okay,
And so I think that's up for, we can decide to put it in there, because the guidelines can support that. At a school, we have and I think that's in the language, we'll come back to that part, that's a good question, to talk about if that's something that the board wants to recommend adding to the policy. But we can operationalize the policy in different ways.
thank you.
And let's see. So there's that, some of the feedback we heard was around, the tension between students developing responsibility, having agency and, personal property. And so in the guidelines, we wanted to show some response to that. We do also want our students to build agency around management of property, keeping track of things, just like they're building habits for responsibility in their homework. A lot of families a number of families gave feedback around that this is something, rather than the school take all of that agency away, that we change that. So we have some different ways to do this. And so a lot of schools are using a keyed locking system, of which our administration at the middle and high school really advocated for. They want students to have the agency to put it in there, and also some of the operations of, for our students that leave for different periods, what they're picked up, and that there's some agency in that. There's also that integrity and personal responsibility of that away. Those would be in public spaces, so that we shifted from kind of some of the different operations of how that would look, whether it be the teacher controls all of it versus the students have some control over that. That's different at the elementary level. We would think that would be on the developmental scale, our kids keeping track of their stuff, that we don't want to do that. So that's in there. Something else,
Key replacer person.
something else that we added in terms of feedback from families was around safety. And this is a really interesting one. It is a good conversation to have. So if something happened, I wouldn't be able to access and get in contact with my kids during an emergency. We did include in the policy, or in the guidelines, just information about what National School Resource Officers suggest. It's, which is they prefer that students don't have cell phones during emergencies, as it locks up phone lines, creates confusion, and makes it harder to organize a mass response in terms of a lot of people moving in different places. In any sort of event. And we actually experienced that last fall when we had a possible gas leak, just managing communications. But we did want to also address, how do we get students their phones once we're cleared for those communications within an emergency, And so some of the things that we're suggesting will be able to be carried out, so they're putting handles on them and things like that, so that they can just be brought out, set aside, if possible. Obviously, in some emergencies, you're just going, and we don't wanna get caught up in that. Some other things we heard was around parent communication during the day, in the guidelines. We're going to make sure that we're changing a setting on Google for our middle and high school students, that they can have direct email access with their parents. We can add in, or grandparents, we can add in email addresses per the request of the family, so that that communication can happen. And also, making sure that we're kind of redoing some of our systems in the office for receiving messages and being able to distribute those, that because of all the pervasive cell phones, that hasn't had to be a strong practice, and that will reset that practice. And also students having access to school phones in public spaces near that. So I think those were so then all of this went out again last week, or a little bit before last week, about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, with those updates. We had another survey that attached to that, and also a listening session. We did not have anyone attend the listening session. Of course, there's been informal conversations around when people run into people in the supermarket. And for the most part, some of those same things come up. A lot of folks are in favor of it and saying, do more. Well, I'll address that in a minute. And there are a few folks that are again, going back to that personal property, and that it's my child's phone, they should have it on them. And so we're working to make sure that they can have as much agency as possible, being able to lock it up. And we always can say that, they don't have to bring it to school. You don't have to bring it to school at all. Or if your student drives, they can leave it in their car. So from that feedback, from the 15 people who did provide feedback for that, we had a strong positive response to the current guidelines and the policy as proposed. We had highly approved 8 and approved 2. There's a couple ones, and then 3 people highly disapproved. So that's consistent with that. We do know that there's some people that are not in support of this plan. And so we want to just continue to communicate that our goal is to have engaging learning where students are distraction free, that their brains can have a break from that. And that we're really promoting a social connected environment for kids that goes along with what we're doing for crew and social emotional learning, that this can be a space where they can get to know each other without that. Also, while we know it's distraction and those and pressures with that, but we also want to reiterate the safety concerns with cell phones in schools. So some of our most significant incidents that have happened here and in other schools do involve a cell phone. And so we want to give students a chance to develop and learn in the school, and take that, give them a break from that, so that those things don't happen. I think that's all of that. And I do want to talk about the strong, that a lot of folks who are advocating for why not the whole day in high school. So I'll just talk a little bit to that. Our administrative team, we came back to that conversation after getting that feedback in some of the surveys and out on the street. And I think that it's a really good question. Right now, we have a couple of competing policies and guidelines that make that a tricky change. One is that we have an open campus. And so our 9th graders and up are able to go out to lunch or go home to lunch during the school day. The tension on this is that we want to make sure that all students are treated in a fair and equitable manner during that period of time, and that we're not, by locking up phones for some students who stay on campus for their lunches, to get our free school lunch, which we promote a free school, healthy school lunch, that we're not providing an incentive for them to leave campus because to be able to have their phone. We also know that some of our students will drive to their houses or over to, the P&D or something like that. And we know a phone is something that is important for students to have who are driving, not in their hands, out in their bags. And that families also use some of those different Find Me and tracking devices for their students once leaving campus. And so right now that's a line that while we a lot of our staff and really like the idea of having a full day. In that, this is a complicating area that we'll continue to review. We'd like to do that. We have a new school administrator in secondary. There was a lot of feedback around ninth grade. And can it be, can there be some sequential or, developmental changes after certain grade levels? I'm not advocating for or against that in this meeting, but it really is probably needing further study. So those are the reasons why we did not go for that. We do know a lot, but there are a lot of school districts that are doing that. Many of those have closed campuses, or they're saying we're gonna do it anyway. And that is something that our school can definitely review in the next year or two, based on how this goes. That's a lot of information about it. So I guess that to the policy, I think the main thing, there was a question about that Craig had. So that's maybe something to talk about, is if we wanted to make that even more clear about the storage of cell phones. So that would be something that we can consider, but maybe I'll just pause there and go over to questions or looking at it. And then I do know there's a language piece in there that still felt it was a little confusing around how to describe the high school lunch. It's,
Right.
there might be a better way to word that. So questions?
I mean, basically with the policy, from what I remember what we were doing, the policy needs to be broad enough to where you all feel like within operations, you have some space to do what you need to do. But it
Right,
needs to be narrow enough to where it's not just who knows what.
right,
So the used or seen during class time, if it's a hard line for you guys that every cell phone, there will be no cell phones in the building unless they're locked away, then that should probably be in the policy, because that's gonna be like the red line there. If it's where they can leave it, whatever, then I think we could leave the language as it is. That way it does give you the opportunity to kind of change your operational stuff a little bit without always going back to the policy. So I think that would be, for me, I think it's fine. And then as long as everyone understands that this is the rules for the school and this is what the students will expect once they come in.
Yeah, my concern about language is that I want to make sure that the policy adequately supports the staff.
Right.
And that someone can't come back and say, well, the staff is going above the policy. The
Right.
staff is doing more, and I don't want to put the staff in that position.
Yep.
So however that's resolved, I'm happy with what works best. I just want to back up. Our job is to make sure we have a robust, safe learning environment. Like that's our primary job. Students first, staff, teachers, family, community, there's a hierarchy to it. And I feel like we're doing that with this. I'm incredibly happy with it. I am in the camp of why not lunch too. I understand the challenge. We can always come back and look at it, but I would hate to throw out the baby with the bathwater on this one because we can't agree on one little detail that may not matter that much.
Mhm.
My biggest question, does staff and administration think this is enforceable without the ambiguity? Because when I read the survey, that was one of the biggest things for teachers was stability, consistency, not putting discretion on the teachers.
right.
Are we there?
I think that after I think that's what the teachers are asking for, and feedback so far from the teachers is that this is strong. They also want it to be enforceable and that we're taking that off their place. I do know our administration team, Josh Gardner, who's been in it, and also Julie Porter, they've been working closely together, and we had an hour conversation the other day just to kind of come back to this. I said, we're going to the board, this is our, one more back to the board, one more conversation about it. And they're both adamant that this is something that takes the daily, that really reduces the level of enforcement on a minute to minute, day to day basis that teachers have to do. Now, of course, that's been varying by level. It has to do with who the teacher is in terms of the type of learning environment. If you have a really strict learning environment, maybe a more of a traditional, depending on the topic, right? So it might be easier to where they maybe are having fewer, but if you have a really inquiry based or they're out in the field or whatever, so that's a long way to say that, we want to take it off of those, teachers. And our administration is in support. That's why the places where they'll be dropped will be located at the entry points where the duty folks are. They'll be within visual, range of the office staff who will be working with them. It doesn't reduce enforcement completely,
Right.
because we do know that there will be, just like any, policy or guideline. And again, one thing I didn't add before is we've talked about, and this is not, fully defined yet because we want to get more staff input when they get back, but we talked about a little bit more of a soft start. One thing we don't want to do is have first day of school be like, welcome back, boom. And all we're gonna talk about all day is the cell phones. And that there gives days for the teachers to build relationships, to talk through it. Our students have a lot of good ideas about it. They have a lot of things to say about it. They want to be heard about how it makes them feel, and it doesn't change the policy or what we're doing, but to be able to bring that into the conversation for them. There's a lot of questions they put in there. There's things about that are related. So we want to make sure our staff also gets the chance to do that with our students, get that input. And so, you know, if some of these operational aspects are tweaked, to make sure that it's the best possible for staff. So, for sure, I know our administrative team at both the elementary and the middle and high school are excited about this way, and they want the burden off of the teachers, and they want it to be really clear and easy for kids. Taking some of that away is helpful, you know, when you have to, you know, even as adults.
Predictable, it's consistent.
You know, I'm trying to put my phone on the shelf when I get home, you know, that just the routine of it that goes over there, so.
Is there any concern that there be teachers that be more lenient in policy that would create a conflict?
Well, I mean, that's everything we work on is around staff culture and agreements and expectations about how all of the operations, the construction and the way things roll out here. And so that kind of goes to, I wouldn't say that there's a concern. I mean, we have a really strong staff culture, and we're working on making sure that we're building those systems for staff leadership through the staff leadership teams, school leadership teams, and a lot of input and feedback. And then working with those folks individually that are either having a hard time enforcing or getting back to the why. And those are conversations, and usually it's just conversations that kind of help understand what's going on for that teacher. So, but I think this reduces it dramatically. So that we're dealing with a much smaller level of students. Who are, and I mean, there's a lot of details to it, just like there is anyway. And we did explore the pouches again. We came back to that. We explored, you know, the different locking systems and really the research from the people that are researching like how it's working. I mean, we only have like 2, 3, 4, or 5 years of research around this. There are a lot of different methods. A lot of them work. I saw one about a school that literally puts them in a manila envelope and then slides them in a file folder. Like that is their pouch system. But really the success of it goes to the culture and the consistency and the follow-up, which our school is committed to continuing to improve in the areas where we're not improving. That was some of the feedback that we've actually got some work to do there, and we've seen that feedback, because it's not just about that. If there's other areas of inconsistency, we need to keep looking at that and addressing that. I think the question around, so at the beginning of the policy, it says, back to the question around, do we add a little bit more clarity in the policy to support the in a locked location? It says, therefore, students may use only I'm just on the second sentence, on district property, on a district vehicle, on a district property, in accordance with this policy. And so that's that where we operationalize within that policy. I think that I wouldn't be against adding some language that isn't so specific, but that says the school reserves the right to lock devices. I wouldn't want to say it has to lock devices, or that would want the articulation, because should there be a case where we find that a non-locking system does work, or something like that, that we would want to have to, you know. So that would be, where would somebody want to suggest something like that? Administration, you know, could be. Where would you suggest a sentence like that, Rachel, or you had mentioned, said something that made it.
Well, if you just go back, at the elementary and middle school level, cell phones, smartwatches will not be permitted. Period. I think we can just really shorten that and they're done. They're not permitted. I know that there's some medical cases and there's some other things where kids are gonna have to have them. But overall, if we just put that cell phones are just not permitted. Because they're not permitted. So I think that one we can just kind of shrink down a little bit.
I think though that let me pull that. I will let you guys talk about that.
So just get rid of the to be used or seen. So they're not be permitted during the entire school day.
Oh, I see, I thought you were,
Just get rid of that part, that they will not be permitted. And then if we just get rid of the to be used or seen. If they're just not permitted, that tightens it down on our side.
I see.
And
Not
that still gives
permitted,
you chance.
not permitted to tiring the entire school day from morning bell to
Yeah.
dismissal, okay.
Just get rid of the to be used or seen. What do you guys think of that?
And then we need to then talk about the language around the school, the administration can, reserves the right to, use lockable storage, use a locking storage system to enforce this policy or something like that. Where would you put that?
Yeah, it could be if students choose to bring a device to school, the administration reserves the right to appropriately store those phones.
Mhm.
There we go.
Where did you say that? Say that again?
If students choose to bring personal technology devices, the administration reserves the right to appropriately store the phone.
Which may include or
Yeah.
interlockable.
And I think with the
Say it one
law,
more time, am I right? Exactly. I just said it and then we'll talk.
If students choose to bring PTDs, the administration reserves the right to store the phone to include
which may,
or lockable storage.
which may include a lockable storage device.
Okay, if students used to bring PDTs to, the administration reserves the right to store the phone,
Or store the device.
To
store the device. Right, to store the device, which may include in a lockable
Yeah.
storage unit.
You don't have to bring it. If you bring it to school, there's a right to lock it up.
Unit.
Outside of the policy, wherever we put the lockable box, I would think a camera would be best to be on it as well.
Yeah, that'll be.
So not just within view of somebody
Yeah,
that has.
absolutely, and that's, that's, for parents to hear that as well.
So are we good with Rachel's second red line of on elementary striking to be used or seen?
Cause then we would want to be the same on the.
And it works on the high school one as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Not
not
be
be
permitted
permitted,
during instructional hours.
yeah, from morning to lunch and then from lunch to.
Is there any better way of describing the high school hours there?
No, I think I like how that is, because it's from morning bell to lunch and then from the after lunch bell to the end of school.
Inside of, yeah, okay.
There you go.
And then the guidelines delineate what's appropriate during that lunchtime,
Yes.
because it's not everywhere, it's in certain spaces.
Where would you suggest putting if students choose to bring PTDs, the administration? Would you put it up at
I think I would put it right there after the high school thing.
Right, that's where I was-
Before you get
after
into,
blocks?
Would that apply to both? Would that logically apply to both blocks, elementary and high school? We wrote to put it there.
It could go up at the top, therefore students may only use on district policy in accordance with this policy. could go at the end of that.
Yeah, it could-
Oh, at the end of that first paragraph, because we're also talking about PTDs. Like after data storage devices,
Yeah, it could go right there.
like the first paragraph.
yeah, I'd put it in first paragraph.
Okay,
Yeah, so it talks about what PTDs are, and then if students chooses to bring them, this could happen.
yeah. So one thing I did put in the guidelines FAQ was some clarity. We had some feedback about laptops and devices, mostly came from parents. And some students in the upper grades are using a different device for some offsite classes. And so in that guideline, I said, we will review that. Right now, it's not well articulated in our guidelines. It's there that we have the right to, restrict them, but we want to make that more articulated in the guidelines and in the policy. So it's probably something I'll bring back later this year, once we've gotten input from our students and staff. So right now, it says, in the guidelines, it says with administrative approval. Just because we don't fully understand the challenge that those students are facing with that, but in terms of, is that helpful to just hear that?
Yep.
Make sure it's on public record, that come back to that.
Like, and just let him have a kid who needs some sort of recorder for music.
Right,
There
Right.
could be things where the
Right.
technology is appropriate.
right, right. And this doesn't say that there, just want to be clear that there doesn't say that there might be a time when a teacher with permission from the administration gets permission to have students using their devices. There are some classes and courses that include some really interactive things that they would be able to say, okay, we're gonna do this on this. Can we ask students to get their phones out and do that? And so that's something that we can add to the guidelines. It's not within the policy, but it does say
But that would be content, I mean, that would be, teacher content. And not just kids using them whenever they want to. So I think that would not, I don't think that would be part of
It's
this.
directed use.
right, it's just, I'm just saying that because that's some feedback about,
Right.
what about this type of special app or tool? We do want to still be a school that uses for learning purposes. There are some really interesting things out there and our students need to be. I'm of the opinion that having a readiness for a digital age.
So the only question I had, and I wasn't able to pull it up, was the cross-reference for the JIC and the subcodes for the student conduct. Just to make sure that everything there lines up
Okay,
with the new, so if we have a new policy, or if we're changing this policy with the red line,
yeah,
just to make sure that there's nothing under JIC that.
Yeah.
That then doesn't correspond.
we could review this. I
That
can
would
pull,
be
I can
the
pull
only-
it up right now and look at it. Which one is it? The
It's just JIC.
Jesse.
And it looks like there was a link, but it wouldn't click for me.
Okay. Pull it up real quick. I think I read it. It was,
So I'm looking it up. Anything else on the red line, guys, that you see?
student conduct.
No, that was took out.
What do you think, dude?
Not really.
This one says, it doesn't say anything about that, but it says, the code emphasizes that certain behavior, especially behavior that disrupts the classroom, is unacceptable and may result in disciplinary action. It just goes on to say, students shall be expected to conduct themselves in keeping with their level of maturity, acting with due regard for the supervisory authority vested in the board by all district employees. Educational purpose underlining all school activities and the widely shared use of district property. And the rights and welfare of other students and staff. So
Cool.
it doesn't say anything in there about specific reference to this.
Cool.
I would also add that there's been an ask that we review the guidelines for things like field trips, athletics and activities and all of that. And so that will be the next step of our team to look at that. I know our kids have really long bus rides and they're, there's big conversation about that if there was, I'm not suggest, I look at the owl thing,
Yeah.
that there's a lot of layers to unpack and peel there, so, we have to think about, student safety and also what students might be doing homework, talking to their parents,
Yeah,
whatever.
there's a lot of
like that.
parental contact on those trips.
Yes, exactly, and so I'm not suggesting any of that, I just know that we, some staff have asked for some clarity there so they can properly support.
Okay.
But this is not including any of that, this is about instructional day.
Okey dokes.
Alright, I move that we approve JICJ, as redlined with the addition of the striking out of to be used or seen. And with the addition of, that the administration, may, if the cell phone is, or if a personal technology device is brought to school, that the administration may store it in a possible lockable device.
Second.
All right. Like to call it?
Craig Benelli.
Aye.
Rachel McWhorter.
Aye.
Craig McClure.
Aye.
I'll just add that follow-up will include communication out to families about the guidelines, about the approval of the policy. We are working on a one pager, with some visuals that will be really clear for the, community to use and reference at their home and hear about how that will, what's allowed and how to manage that. And then we'll be working with our school staff, around the rollout. Again, we want to really make sure our students feel heard, that we're building relationships, and that everybody has a chance to understand the why. So how that plays out in the first days of school will be shared by the school administration.
Perfect.
Do we want to schedule this for review on our tracker at the end of this school year?
I think that would be a good idea.
I'll also just say out loud again that the other reference to this is that there's been asked for an AI working group. And so we'll keep that on the radar with within the strategic plan
Yeah, the other thing I saw in the surveys, and again, surveys of the 15 people,
and.
but the comment that it was hard to get a hold of staff, it was hard to get a hold of people.
Mhm.
Do we have a phone? Do we need to address phones not getting answered, or is that a one thing?
Well, we are updating and reviewing our communication guidelines.
Okay.
And so I could share more about that at the next board meeting, and parents will start to see some of that. Our teachers will see some of that, and so that we just need to increase some clarity for that, so. We'll share about more about that.
All right, with that, our next meeting scheduled will be,
I'm gonna tell you, it is August 17th.
alrighty.
And no work session before that,
And work session.
and I would not one the first week. No, because that would be like next week.
Yep.
So first
Cool.
work session and meeting is on the 17th. Yeah, we did not put one on the 3rd.
Alrighty. Well, I think if there's nothing else, then
I'll move we adjourn.
I'll second.
Okay.
Craig Benelli.
Aye.
Rachel McWhorter.
Aye,
Craig McClure.
Aye.
we adjourned.